going to give you an overview of the Community Organisational Development Endogenous Development Framework approach. Those of us who are proponents of the Community Organisational Development Endogenous Development Framework share the belief and conviction that all communities have Indigenous knowledge. We recognise that communities have been utilising this Indigenous knowledge as well as their cultural and natural resources for their own development. We believe that communities are in the best position to reflect on their past and present and plan their future. This is why Sankofa is central to the Indigenous Development approach. The Community Organisational Development Indigenous Development is conceived holistically to encompass the spiritual, social, economic, physical, and environmental aspects of being human and living socially. Therefore, as a way to facilitate development, the ED framework begins with Indigenous knowledge, institutions, and the cultural strengths of the people as the principal way to engender the community's vision. The 4 critical blocks of the ED approach are Community Institutions and Resource Mapping, CIRM. This process is deeply participatory. The community is facilitated in mapping its institutions and resources to encompass its spiritual, intellectual, cultural, technical, and ecological knowledge. This includes the taboos of the community, i.e. songs, dances, and art forms. The CIRM also enables the community to recognize its institutional and physical resources to be harnessed for the desired change. This process includes the training of a 5 to 7 member CIRM team to lead the documentation process. 2. Community visioning and action planning. This process helps the community to elaborate its vision after reflection on the past and the present. This leads to the development of action plans and the identification of resources needed to achieve this vision. 3. Community Organisational Self-Assessment. The Community Organisational Self-Assessment helps the community to better recognise its strengths and the areas that need to be strengthened in order to realise the community's goals. It helps the community to identify where external sources might be located to assess if they are appropriate for the community. 4. Community Institutional Strengthening, CIS. After identifying areas that require external support, the community, with the help of CIS, begins a process of systematically strengthening their institutions by incorporating indigenous knowledge, which is knowledge from outside the community, with existing indigenous knowledge. This process is about strengthening the organizational capacity of the community to bring about its own development. 5. Learning, sharing, and assessing, LESSA. Linking the other 4 building blocks is the LESSA. The learning, sharing, and assessing building block is a mechanism for deepening learning, sharing, and assessing of the outcomes and impact of community organizational strengthening within communities and between communities. The Community Organizational Development Indigenous Development Framework also has a 3-dimensional performance monitoring and evaluation system. There are 2 significant aspects to this system for monitoring and evaluation. First, it engages not just material, but the social and spiritual aspects of well-being, as both are equally important in many communities where WaterAid Ghana works. Second, the EPME takes the learning, sharing, and reflecting of communities as the primary purpose for M&E. Accountability is first and foremost to communities, not just to donors. That is, learning within the community and between communities is of highest priority. People often want to know if the Indigenous Development Approach is not just another participatory approach. The answer is no. The Community Organisational Development Indigenous Development Approach is more than that. Here are a few points to elaborate the differences. 1. A participatory approach doesn't necessarily mean the community is participating in an agenda that they have set for themselves. It could very well be that they are actively participating in agendas of others as well. In our approach, the objective is to have the community decide, define, and determine their own vision for development, and then to support the realization of that vision. 2. Another key part is the concern of spiritual dimension. Oftentimes, participatory approaches don't necessarily engage the spiritual aspects of a community. A lot of resources go into fulfilling the material, the economic development needs, to neglect the spiritual and cultural dimensions. The ED approach, however, recognizes the importance of the spiritual dimension and the material, and engages both in achieving set goals for the community. This marks a clear distinction between the COD-ED approach and other participatory approaches. A third and very important aspect of the COD-ED approach is the way in which traditional authorities and community institutions are deeply engaged. Traditional authorities and institutions often hold considerable power and/or influence. Recognizing the role that the traditional authorities and institutions can play in realizing the vision and goals of the community, the COD-ED approach aims to work closely with these institutions in facilitating community organizational development. So, you have now learned a little about the community organizational development indigenous development approach. If you want to learn more and participate in the COD-ED training workshops, then contact us.